and you're going to need to hold the microphone. We did have a stand for it, but you've got to have it right next to the mouth. Well, welcome everyone. It would help if I held the microphone up myself. Can you all hear me all right up the back? Yes. Right. Well, thank you for coming, and thanks to the Laurieton United Services Club for making this room available for us tonight. I'm Greg Franks. I'm president of the Hastings Residents Association. We're running the forum tonight. We have over here Rupert and Marianne from Toastmasters in Port Macquarie, who will be doing the timekeeping to make sure everyone keeps on time. And the forum's also being broadcast live on YouTube, and you'll be able to view it again later on YouTube if you want to. Now, our host and moderator for tonight is the local GP, Dr. Ahmed, and I'll pass it over to him, and he'll explain the rules and introduce the candidates to you. Excellent.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mert. Thank you for coming today. It's really nice to see you all here and a good turnout. Can you all hear me okay? Is that working good? Great. So I'll just explain a little bit. Greg's just spoken there, but I'll go through the rules just briefly how it's going to work today, and hopefully that makes it all clear. It should be quite straightforward, really. So to start with, I'm just going to introduce the candidates sitting here. I think that's who we've all come to see. So just got State MP Leslie Williams. So have a little round of applause, shall we, for standing today? Thank you. And then we've got Mayor Peta Pinson. We've got Keith McMullen for Labour. And we've got Stuart Watson for the Greens. Okay. And so we've got to mention there that Leslie Williams obviously is standing for the Liberals and Peta Pinson for the Nationals. I'm sure we all knew that anyway. So I'll just go through the rules. I put that one in. I read those two. I forgot you two at the beginning, so I thought I'd better add in. So to start with, we're going to just have a little bit. When we start, we're just going to have an introduction, and each candidate will get 3 minutes initially, just to introduce themselves and some opening remarks. Then we're going to take questions from the floor. The way that's going to work is the questions are going to be. We're just going to pick people from the floor. We haven't predetermined any questions, so we're not aware of what's being asked. And Greg is going to be around with a microphone, and then if you raise your hand if you want to ask a question, he'll come and take your question off you. So there'll be 1 minute to answer each question, and I must stress that I've used a program to completely randomise the order that each question is going to be answered in. So I've got a list here that says who I'm going to each question 1, and the order that's going to be question 2. The order, so there's nothing. You're not going to be changing the order in any way to suit anyone. And then, so we'll go through and we'll try and get as many questions in as we can. So hopefully if we can all stick to time, that would be great. That means we can just get more questions in from everyone. That would be brilliant. And then at the end of the session, we're going to have 2 minutes for everyone, for each candidate to summarise and some closing remarks. So I'll start by just asking for opening remarks. That's okay. So to start with, randomly selected here, we've got Keith McMullen.
Thanks, folks. Yep. Is that on? Yes. First of all, I thank you for the invitation. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Biripi land. And of course, I pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. It's a thrill to be here to share it in such peaceful cooperation. It's also a thrill for me tonight to be the Labor candidate for the coming state election. I feel that's quite an honour, because I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants in the Labor Party who have been before me, giants like John Lang, Ben Chifley, Gough Whitlam, Bob Hawke, men who have risen at a time of need and a time of crisis. Men who had policies and leadership and were not afraid to stand up to see those policies bring about their much needed change. I think today New South Wales and Port Macquarie are also facing crises. Crises in health, education, housing, climate, gambling, koalas, wildlife and regional development, rorts and privatisation, and the managing of local issues. Labor recognises this and has the policies to address these needs. For health, we want safe staffing levels. We want to bring in an additional 1,200 more nurses and midwives. For education, we want to make 10,000 casual teachers permanent. We want to reduce their administration workload by 5 hours and ban mobile phones in classroom. To address the housing and the homeless problem, we want to abolish the first home owners stamp duty of homes up to $800,000 and to build more affordable rentals. For koalas, we want to see the creation of the Great Koala National Park, which will extend from north of Kempsey to near Coffs Harbour, which will be home to 20% of New South Wales koalas. This will create jobs in tourism and it will create local employment. It will also preserve our endangered fauna and flora. We want gambling reform. We want to reduce poker machines and the input of gambling, the amount of money that goes into the machines. For climate, Labor will create the New South Wales Energy Security Corporation for the medium and long-term renewable storage of pumped hydro and renewable energies. For small businesses, Labor will create and establish the New South Wales Business Bureau to help small businesses cut and reduce red tape and to access government programs and government contracts. We want to end the rorts. We want to see transparency in government. We want to abolish overseas trade commissions roles. We want to independently fund the ICAC. And of course, we want to address local issues to do with good government, open transparency, and the sustainable management of growth in our areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Next, we've got Peter Pinson.
Thanks so much. Good evening, everybody. I like to speak from the heart. I like to come forward and tell you what's on my mind. And for those of you who know me, you know I'm quite good at it. A poll of 81% of Australians all agreed that political candidates should focus on local issues and local communities. And that's what I'm about. Why? Because I'm your local mayor. I've been your local mayor for the last 6 years almost. And this poll, for anyone who's interested, was a poll taken just before a federal election. It was in 2018 and it was a YouGov survey. So feel free to go and have a look at that. What I would say is, tell me, has anything changed? I would say probably 81% has gone a little higher. That's exactly what communities that like ours expect, is that their candidates actually look after the local issues, because isn't it all levels of government and all politics is local? Before I go on, I just want to acknowledge my family. I want to acknowledge you, Craig Pinson, my husband, who, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to cope with the last 6 years, and certainly going into this, wading into a state election. Thank you for your support and my family's support. I want to thank my friends, those I call friends, and I want to thank you, my supporters, who are here tonight as I wade into these uncharted waters. If you know anything about me, you know I lead from the heart. I fight for what I believe is right, and I represent you, my region, to the best of my ability. Do I have all the answers? No, I do not. Will I seek out the solutions? You betcha I will. People ask me why run for a state seat. Firstly, because I was asked by the National Party. I was asked by the National Party to recontest the seat as was won in the March 2019 election. The election that was won by Leslie Williams here as a National Party member. And a quote was made by Leslie when we went out on the polling booths and we did what National Party members always do. We showed we never take anything for granted. I know there's a few National Party members here in the audience tonight, and I'll tell you, well, I never take anything for granted. I don't take it for granted in my role as Mayor, and I will not be taking it for granted as the National Party candidate. I'm not here tonight to sell you anything. I'm not here to sell you a policy. I'm not here to spruik propaganda. I'm here tonight to offer myself to you as a leader. I'm here to offer you as a leader who puts you first, who stays when the going gets tough, fights like a warrior for what our community deserves. And I stand before you as a choice, simply a choice for a Member of Parliament who won't be a bureaucrat for you, won't be a Macquarie Street puppet who will bring Macquarie Street to the region. I will take our region to Macquarie Street. I'll be a strong representative. I'll take your views and concerns and wishes to the House of the Parliament in Macquarie Street and fight for what we deserve. Thank you for coming tonight. I know all of you did this because you care about this region as much as I do. Thank you.
Stuart.
Thanks so much, and thanks for everybody for taking the effort to turn up tonight. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but a lot about the Greens and the Greens policies. Firstly, as the Greens candidate for Port Macquarie, I'm ready to serve the people of our beautiful region, free of any influence from big corporations. And I'm standing for the urgent need for real action on climate change, an area of major policy failure by successive governments. I'm a long-term resident, having lived here for 40 years, a husband, a father, and I'm passionately committed to achieving the opportunities for all of us to live a better life. I'm a small business owner, a renewable energy consultant, and I've been involved in this industry for 30 years. So I understand in detail the potential and the challenges ahead as we plan for a truly sustainable future. When possible, I love to cycle or go sailing as regular as possible, and I've got a mortgage on the jetty down here in front of the Laurieton Services Club. Years ago, I built my own electric vehicle and I continue to use this form of transport. I believe electric vehicles will play an important role in our future. We are now living with human-induced climate change. The effects have been predicted for years and now present us with increased extreme weather events. We owe it to our children and all the species to act decisively and immediately to limit the future damage. We've got the skills and the available solutions, and we are now being pushed even by our own school children to raise our game. I'm proud to be a member of a party that doesn't take donations from fossil fuel companies or other large corporations, a party that was always cared about the environment and social equity. As a member for Port Macquarie, I would sincerely act in the best interest of our community without the need to give value for money to large corporate donors. Together, we can build a bright future where no one is left behind. Our policies are clearly stated, concise and readily available. The Greens would rescue our public health system, abolish public sector wage caps for nurses and police and teachers, and promote free and accessible healthcare options, particularly for mental health and dental health. We would legislate better nurse to patient ratios. We would tackle the cost of living and housing crisis. We'd introduce a rent increase moratorium, an effective public housing strategy, and a 5% empty levy on empty houses to tackle the Airbnb problem that is hitting our community. We'd stop the destructive and uneconomic logging in public native forests, including a true transition plan to plantation logging and value-adding jobs for forestry workers.
I've got this one up for me now. We've got about 10 seconds.
About time, yeah. And a vote for the introduction and expansion of the Great Koala National Park. I've got a lot more to tell you about our policies, and thank you for coming tonight. Vote 1 for the Greens in the House of Reps and for the Senate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Firstly, welcome everybody here tonight. It's great to see such a great turnout. Can I thank the Hastings Residents Association for putting on this evening, for hosting it. the local Toastmasters for your role, and to you, Mert, as our MC and moderator. Mary's absolutely right. Politics is all about local issues, and so that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. I bring to you as a candidate for the next state election something that sets me apart from the others, and that is 12 years of experience as your Member of Parliament. And what I have demonstrated over these 12 years, and as a part of the team in government, the Liberals and Nationals, is that we have delivered unprecedented investment in this area in the Port Macquarie electorate. But I want to particularly talk about some local issues that are relevant to the Camden Haven, because I notice a lot of people in the room here are from the Camden Haven. I want to talk about some of the things that we have delivered, and there's been quite a lot. Most recently, they've done Bogan breakwall upgrade, the pedestrian crossing at Bold Street, upgrades to the Laurieton police station, a number of different upgrades to the Laurieton tennis courts, including new LED lighting, a new generator for this club right here so that they can continue to work, as they have in many instances, as an evacuation centre. Of course, one of the most significant projects delivered very early was the Stingray Creek Bridge. Now, a project delivered in partnership with Council and Transport for New South Wales, but almost 2/3 of it funded by the New South Wales Government. New boat ramps. There are many people in our local community who love to enjoy the water, and we've upgraded boat ramps at North Haven, at Dunbogan, and at Bruce Water Reserve. We've also significantly, and I think really importantly, made sure that we've supported our emergency services. So upgrades to, for example, our SES and our Marine Rescue, both organisations who play an incredibly important role in our community. Some of the more recent announcements that we've made and commitments that we've made, these aren't election commitments, but funding that's there, $2.985 million for the Beach to Beach project, pathway project, an absolutely outstanding community project that shows what can happen when you work in partnership with others across the community. The upgrade to Seymour Street, the $100,000 for the Laurieton CV Master Plan, and of course the Camden Haven Health one. But there is much, much more work to do, and that's why I'm really focused on making sure that I can continue to work, not just with my side of politics, but all sides of politics, no matter what the outcome of the election, so we continue to get the delivery of sound investment and projects into the Camden Haven.
Thank you all for your introductions there. So now we'll get, in a second, now we'll get stuck into the question part. So just before we start, just to remind everyone, so Greg's going to have a microphone. He's going to be taking questions from the floor. Raise your hand, which some of you are doing already, and I'll be with you in a second. Then we'll come to you for the questions. Just some housekeeping. Please keep your questions brief, because then we can get on and answer them. So just straight to the point. And if you could really keep them respectful, we'd like to thank these candidates for coming today. Really appreciate their time, and we just, want to explore more about their policies and ask them questions, not kind of attack them. So that would be much appreciated. All candidates will have 1 minute to respond, and we'll call up in the order that's been designated. And yeah, we can start the questions. So has anyone got a question?
Yeah, just before I get to the rest of you, we have a journalist here from Port News and Stuart who has a two-part question for you. So I'll get him to pose the first part to you, and then we'll get into the rest of you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Teasdale, a journalist with the Port News, and I just have a couple of questions for each of the candidates. The first question is,
Hold it a bit closer.
will you support the next government booking a full page of advertising every week in regional newspapers?
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. And I want to acknowledge the work you do over a significant period of time as a local journalist. It's been great to get to know you. I think you've been there the entire 12 years that I've been the member. And I want to acknowledge the really important role that local newspapers play in our community. I'm not sure that I can commit because, obviously a government is quite a complex process, so I'm not going to make a commitment that potentially I can't keep in terms of a full one-page ad. I think you had said weekly, but as you're probably aware, I've already booked my advertising in our local newspaper because I think it's a really important role to play in our local community. So thank you for your question.
Lisa, certainly, and thank you for the great work you've done for a long time in Port Macquarie. It's really appreciated. Yes, the Greens support local news, and the importance of local journalism can't be exaggerated. Particularly local radio and local television. We're getting shortcut on it, and we'd be happy to comply with that.
Thank you, Lisa. This is one of those questions that you wish you could say yes to and give a definite answer. This one's quite close to my heart because when I left Port Macquarie High School, I did a 5-year apprenticeship with the Port Macquarie News, so I want to see it survive. Obviously, I'm not in a position to say the party can give what you want. Personally, I wish we could, and I'd certainly could guarantee to you that I'd give you every support should I be elected to see the Port Macquarie News and other local media thrive.
Short answer, no. I know this is a commitment, and thank you for doing your job because you're asked to ask this question, and I understand it's driven by print media for the government. I have to say it's an absolute travesty that we have lost our regular print papers, not just Port News, not just Ahmed having career, but everything in print. We go to print media to get our information, good or bad. We go to print media and this is terrible, to find out who we cared about as friends, to find out if they're no longer with us anymore. You know, the obituaries was where people went to find out if we'd lost a loved one within our community, and that's how some of us found these things out. We went there to know the sporting results for the weekend. And it's been limited now. I don't like going online for my news. I actually bought a paper today. And I bought it just in case I need it to refer to later on this evening. So I'm still purchasing. I'm still a person who likes a bit of paper to go through my fingers, but I can't commit to something like that. I'm just a candidate for the National Party at this stage. I'm no member of the government. Thanks.
Thank you.
The second part of your question.
And finally, will you reverse the 2020 COVID-related change that allowed local councils in New South Wales to withdraw regular advertising, council news and notices for local newspapers?
I'm not really clear on that question. Could you run it again, please? Yeah.
Sorry, so the question is, will you reverse the 2020 COVID-related change that allowed local councils in New South Wales to withdraw regular advertising of council news and notices from local newspapers?
And to be honest, Lisa, I wasn't aware of that COVID change. So to me, I'd be investigating and find out why. So I've got to really answer truthfully and say I wasn't aware that the council wasn't putting those things into local public news presently. Yeah. Thanks. Okay.
I was not aware of that either, Lisa. I would certainly be happy to talk with you privately about that to see how this can be resolved satisfactorily.
Is this something, Lisa, that council is in control of? Is this something that at a local government level we can make a decision? Again, like the others, this is the first I've heard of it. So my question to you is this something at a local level, from a council perspective, we should be looking at?
My understanding is yes.
Oh, so as Mayor, I guess I have some sway in that department. So I'd be happy for you to follow up with an email to the Mayor's office, and I'll take that forward. Thank you.
Our next question. Thank you. John Saunders, past president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Canberra. I only have one question. and it applies to all candidates. If you are successful in winning the seat of Port Macquarie, but your party fails to win the state election, what are you going to do for your community in the next 4 years in opposition?
Yes, that is a very good question. Unfortunately, if you do win the seat and your party doesn't, you do have your wings clipped quite a bit. But as the representative of your area, you still have to work as hard as you can, talking and in consultation with all community groups, small businesses, local council, tourism groups, and all citizens' bodies to find out what the local issues are and do your best in Parliament. That's what you're there for, to work, to find out what is needed. You're there to represent your area. So you may not have a seat at the table of legislation, but you are in Parliament. You've got a job to do. So you find out what is needed and do your best to meet it.
Thank you for the question, John. And can I acknowledge all the work that you've done in the community over so many years, particularly in terms of the Chamber of Commerce? It is a very good question. But one of the things I've worked really hard at over the last 12 years I've been in Parliament is to work across party lines. And we've had some incredible successes. In fact, some of the most historic legislation that's gone through our Parliament, even though the Parliament is 200 years old, it is legislation that has been across party lines. And I'm talking specifically about the voluntary assisted dying bill, and I was one of the co-hosts of that bill. More members of Parliament co-hosted that bill than any other bill in the history of the 200 years of our Parliament. So I worked really hard at building relationships. And yes, my real hope, particularly for this community, is that our government is returned because we have the best interests of our community at heart. However, if that's not the case, I am confident that I can continue to work alongside my Labor colleagues, my Green colleagues, and the other crossbenchers as I have in the past to get the results that we need.
Yeah, thanks, John, for a great question. On the unlikely case that the Greens win Parliament in New South Wales, will hang in there. So it's the party. We work across party lines. And as a representative for you, I'm sure that would be the way that politics works. And I know how Greens representatives work with the Liberals, the National Party and Labor in government. Our politicians do a good job working across party lines where it really counts. And as a Greens local member, you'd just be acting in your best interest. I mean, a vote for the Greens is telling the major parties, shape up. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Well, for those of you who know me, I spent the first 4 years of my term in opposition as mayor. So, it's pretty tough to be out there really pushing what the community wants to see happen in the region. It's no different. Should I be elected and the government not be returned, I would be really concerned myself as a resident of the state of New South Wales. I'd be very concerned for our region, given that the National Party is the only party that looks after regional New South Wales and regional Australia. And for me, it would just be pushing forward as usual, going into Parliament, actually to let you know and let them know what your perspective of the expectations of this region are. So I guess I've done my apprenticeship in opposition. Thanks.
Next question. Steve Rice is my name. Leslie knows me well. And as my member, for 8 years in Bonnie Hills, I'm a man and I left Cattle Farmers, own a property in Murtaza, and I'll commend Leslie on. I can be a bit painful, but she gets me answers to things. I've got a straight question for Leslie. Basically, you defected to the Liberal Party in 2020. You claim you defected to the Liberal Party because of barrel error across the floor and the inaccurate file of that. Would I be right in saying partly wrong with that?
My statement's on the public record.
Okay, all right. of a document which you arranged for me to Rob.
Might just these questions are for all the candidates, so we're not doing specific ones to candidates today. That might be best directed to them personally. So if you have a question you want to ask all of the candidates that they can all answer, that would be the kind of way we're going with today.
Yeah,
So if you have one, if you have one, sorry about that.
That's fine.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Happy to discuss it with you after this.
Yes, hello. My name is Steve Flecknoe Brown. I'm a consultant physician and the Honorary Secretary of the Regional Medical Specialists Association. For all of you, the question is based on, firstly, a recent upper house inquiry into rural health and some pretty alarming discoveries. What will you be seeking, not just for Port Macquarie, but for all these places that are a fair way away from Port Macquarie Place Hospital in terms of hospital services and state-funded health services?
Thanks so much, Steve. I have to be brutally honest. I've been asked to represent the seat of Port Macquarie as a candidate. My focus is on the well-being of that electorate. We understand health is a major issue. We are an ageing society, and with age, I'm 54 tomorrow, you start to really feel it. I have to say that from my understanding, and bear with me, I'm the Mayor of Port Macquarie Hastings and a candidate. So I've not sat in the Parliament, I've not made the legislation at this stage. So it's very much in place with the Nationals and Liberals who've been in government. What I would say is this, is that do we deserve better healthcare in the regions? Yes, we do. Why do I say that? Because in the regions, we have a higher morbidity rate than we do in the cities. So, you know, we really need to step up exactly what is happening in regional Australia. Is that through policy making of government? Yes, it is. Is that through understanding what is required in regions like ours? Yes, it is. I'm happy to take that into Parliament on behalf of our region, the region of the Port Macquarie electorate, if I'm so elected. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Steve. As you probably know, one of my roles previously was Parliamentary Secretary for Rural and Regional Health. And so I had the opportunity to travel right across the state, particularly out to the far west, to get a much better understanding. And you're absolutely right. I think for many of us, the findings of the inquiry weren't that surprising. We're very well aware of the inequities when it comes to health outcomes between the regions and metropolitan areas. From a local perspective, I'm going to continue to work with our local health district to make sure I can advocate what they know are the needs for their community, because they're the best ones who know, the ones who are working in the system. But at the end of the day, I think it's obviously such a complex issue, as you well know. We have a real shortage of GPs, which obviously comes under federal jurisdiction. But I'm not passing the buck on that, because what I think we need to do is make sure that we've worked in unison, federal and state, to make sure we can deliver better health outcomes. And, you know, I go to the work that's already been done with the Premier of our state and Victoria to start to look at other initiatives across borders that will deliver better outcomes for the community, because that's where we really have to put the focus on the patient and the clients.
Health is one of those areas that when you look into as an aspiring politician, that almost breaks your heart at the moment. Currently in the Port Macquarie Base Hospital, there's 99 full-time positions that cannot be fulfilled. The morale there is terrible. Staff is overworked. Ambulance times are and bedtime, wait times are far too long. Unfortunately, it's not something that you can click your fingers and heal or fix overnight as much as we would like to. When I read before a very quick overview of what some of Labor's policies for the state were, I was saying to you that the practical outworking of that, if I'm elected, has to happen in Port Macquarie as much as all over the state. This is a huge and urgent issue. It's more complex than we've just touched on here tonight. There's issues for doctors themselves, the viability of their practice, the service that they can provide, as well as not enough staff in hospital, and not enough medical services right across our rural and regional areas.
Great, thanks for the question, Steve. And you'll excuse me if I read straight from our clear and concise policies. And a little bit of this blame has got to be laid on a decade of Liberal national government and the global pandemic. It's left our health system in a crisis. Wait times, as we've heard, for emergency departments and ambulances have exploded. Chronic understaffing and deteriorating working conditions have pushed the frontline healthcare workers to protest in the streets. We've seen this 3 times now in Port Macquarie. And more people cannot afford the healthcare they need. They can't afford to go and see their doctors because of the Medicare gap and end up in emergency. The Greens have already introduced a bill to the New South Wales Parliament to establish a nurse-to-patient ratio to improve them and push the government to give bonuses to nurses. With your vote, you can put the Greens in the balance of power, and we can work to fix our healthcare system and provide free healthcare when and where it's needed. The pandemic's pushed our struggling health system to the brink, and we've got under-resourced hospitals. We support healthcare workers choosing to live in the regions and fix the broken locum system and expand assistance for patients who need travel support. Thank you.
Just before the next question, if I could ask you, would it be possible to have some comments from the back if you could stand when you're speaking and just can't see you or see your face while you're talking? That'd be great, thanks.
Thank you very much. To all the candidates here tonight, my question is, how comfortable are you with each of your respective parties' websites, policies, in the sense that they are current, comprehensive, and easily accessible for the voting population?
Very. That's my short answer. Go on to New South Wales Labor. You'll find it all there. Follow the links, follow the prompts, and it's all laid out.
Thanks for the question. I really don't have any input into the Nationals website at the moment, but the information is current about me and about what I stand for Port Macquarie, so I'm really comfortable with that. Really pleased with the information and my message. Thanks.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, I think I can claim top points on this one. I give myself 10 out of 10 for policies. The Greens really focus on grassroots policies and putting them up there on the website. I've done comparisons with, I think I'll give myself 10, a couple of 8s here, and John Ballarat is still not your leader. So true access and fast access to concise, precise, well scientifically sourced policies is a great thing that the Greens have. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stuart. Well, I am incredibly comfortable with the website that the Liberal Party have up. I think it's really easy to follow. It has all of our policies for there to read. I also have my own website, which you're welcome to have a look at, which is more about local issues. But 2 days ago, the New South Wales Liberals released our plan for the future of New South Wales, and I'd encourage you to go onto the website and have a look at it. We are the only party actually that has a very clear, precise plan about how we're going to deliver on all of the issues going forward into the next 4 years and further.
Hello, my question to all councillors is, should ministers come to our area, to our LGA, will you commit in your term elected to engage with our CEO and our mayor and let them know the ministers are around town for community?
Well, thank you for the question, Councillor McMullen, obviously quite clearly directed at me. But if it's appropriate, if the minister is a relative and has something that is relevant to the local council, absolutely, and that's why I've organised meetings in the past that you've attended with the local government minister, for example, There have been many ministers that the council has had the opportunity to meet with, but sometimes it's actually not appropriate, or it's not relevant, I should say, to council's actual jurisdiction. And there are many other people in the community that deserve and should have the opportunity to meet with ministers that are directly relevant to their particular policy areas. So I make no apology for that.
Yes, I think this is crucial. I spoke before about New South Wales state policies, Labor policies. They have to be outworked practically in the Port Macquarie and our southern regions. I think it's crucial that there is a vital level of communication between all levels of government, state and local council governments. It's vital. And that's another way that the local representative can find out what are the local issues that are important, so that that local member can then take it down to Parliament in Sydney and make sure that the right decisions are made.
Thanks for that, Councillor Maltman, and I was a little surprised by that question. Certainly not a Dorothy Dix, but I'm really thankful for it. As the Mayor who's been black banned from some of these ministerial visits, truth and fact, I think that at the end of the day, we at all levels of government, they call it the wedding cake. The bottom is local government. It's the biggest slice. Why? Because we are closest to you and we represent you. Next is the state level, the next level of the tier of the wedding cake, and then the federal, right up the top. Absolutely. How can I express to upper levels of government and especially ministers what your concerns are if I'm excluded from meeting with them? Should I be your next Member of Parliament? Absolutely. I will ensure that ministers are brought close to the closest level of government, which is local government, and make sure that they hear loud and clear what the objections, the obstacles and the concerns are for this electorate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel, for the question. I feel like I've had a politics 101 there. Yeah. Personally, I'm part of the Energy Forever local community energy group, and I've always had access to the ministers that I've needed for that portfolio, and I thank Leslie for the ability to do that. And I think we all have access to our politicians. If we try through their staff, that's what they're there for. So yes, we would provide access to ministers and shadow ministers, just as important. Thank you.
Anyway, 30 years involvement in the local community. I recall you referring to climate change. This is really, I suppose, prominent for Peter, but it concerns all of them. I recall Peter referring to climate change as just a brain when you were independent, when you voted to exceed our council's climate change action. You indicated this was not a priority for the government. Has something changed since you became national parliament? And could you express your views on your priority to address climate action, which concerns
Can I go first? Because that's actually asked of me.
Yeah, it shouldn't be though. It shouldn't be. So if we can just rephrase it, so it's basically asking that question, the question, but not directed to one person.
I think I need to just something in my mind if I can recall that but I mean, it concerns us. Is it just as a brain or really obviously not? Maybe what I need to know is the attitude all of you take towards the understanding of climate change and how it applies to us and how it affects us.
I hope I've understood your question. Was it what is my attitude or latest stance towards climate change? In summary, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, personally, not as a party, but personally.
Oh, personally?
Yes.
Oh, I'm all for it. I think it's essential that we have, sorry, I'm not all for climate change, but what I meant to say is I'm all for that we, at all levels of government, have policies that are reflecting a worldwide trend away from fossil fuels towards renewables. Whether we agree with it or not, whether we like it or not, that is the way that the world is moving. International trade will be determined in some cases through tariffs, where products come from countries that do not have good climate change or environmental policies. Many industries, including oil industries, great oil multinational corporations are moving towards renewable. So it's important that we are aware of worldwide trends. We're aware of trends in the marketplace, and that we have policies that reflect that, so that we do not get left behind, because there are emerging industries with the renewable change that's happening.
Thanks so much for the question. I wish I had more time. I was anticipating this. Has my opinion changed? No, it's actually solidified, and I'll tell you for why. This was sent to me by one of our residents, which is very interesting reading. NASA admits that climate change occurs because of changes in the Earth's solar orbit, and not because of SUVs and fossil fuels and plastic straws. No, excuse me, this is my moment to explain to you why I think this way. I also, when I filled in the various forms that you do to stand here before you today, there was a bit on climate change, and I said I'm not convinced. And I'm not convinced because there is alternate information. Now, I bought this paper today, and I did tell you all about it when I was answering Lisa's question. It says net zero to cost up to 130,000 jobs, and the majority of those jobs are in rural regional New South Wales areas like ours. 130,000 people out of work. I can't buy into something that there is an alternate viewpoint on. And in the role as mayor, because I'm speaking to you as mayor, and from a personal perspective, my job is to deliver core infrastructure for this community. So our roads, our sewer, our water, security, onward and onward and onward. I'm sorry that's not the answer you want, but you want someone who actually speaks their truth, and I'm doing that tonight.
Thank you for the question, Betty, and I think it's a really important question, and in many ways I'm really going to reflect some of the things that Keith said. I think it's incumbent on all levels of government and all leaders to make sure that we do what we can to address climate change. Our community expects us to do that. Whether they're senior citizens like you or those that are at preschool, they expect us to be working together to address climate change. It is so important that we do that. I want to commend also community groups like Energy Forever that I've had the opportunity to work with, because I think they are showing, by leading the way, and lots of others. I attended a forum with a whole range of community projects up and down the coast. What our community wants is actually to be shown how they can be a part of the change to make sure we address climate change. And things like the community projects that we're seeing up and down the coast are great ways of doing that. But I think there's more we can do, and I think that as a community, we want to know as individuals how we can play a part in making that change.
Well, thanks very much. As I said in my introduction, I'm standing for the Greens because we need decisive action on climate change. And to quote, 130,000 jobs will be lost because we're acting on climate change is just really listening to the fossil fuel lobby. So, and I really appreciate your honesty, Peta, but it's the existential problem that we've got to deal with. The rubber on the road starts with local, then state, then federal, and when we have a local council who rescind climate change policies under your guidance, when you voted against the long-term energy strategy from day one, you're honest about the way you feel about it, but we can't go forward and not recognise that this is the greatest existential problem that we face in society, and not acting on climate change is criminal. All around the world, investment is in renewables. We have to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. If you adhere to the science, we are committed to the Paris Climate Change Treaty. We've got to end our reliance on fossil fuels, and we've got to do it quickly. And thanks so much, Betty, for the question. You can see I'm passionate about this and would like to take more questions on it.
I'll pass over for my first question, but I've Okay, all right. Okay, so the end result is climate change. Australia, we're a million miles from everywhere. China and India. This is a question. Excuse me. You wait your turn. You're next.
So just ask a question. Don't give a statement.
Right. Okay. So climate change. All right. Okay. So we close Erie Power Station. The lights are going to be off in New South Wales. Renewables are not cost effective. They don't work. All right. Okay. So no, I'm asking the question.
So you're making statements that aren't statements. Yeah, they're not factual based. So just general questions.
I just want to ask, my name is Laurieton. I always love the love fest. I just wanted to ask all candidates, how do you feel would be the interests of the community? You have a single person in the dual role as mayor and local member, and how do you think that would affect access of people to their elected representatives?
I think I'm first off on this one, and thanks, Mel, for the question. It's a hard one. I mean, Clover Moore did it, but my answer would be I think we would lose independence in local government, and I really should just leave it at that. Thank you. Pass it on to Leslie.
Thank you, Stuart. Obviously, in New South Wales in the Parliament, we have legislated that in normal circumstances, you wouldn't be allowed to be the mayor and the local member. However, because of COVID and the changing timeframes of the local government election means that, in fact, if Peta won, she could be the state member and the local mayor. Is that in the best interest of the community? I don't think so. And in fact, the mayor said herself only a few days ago that being the mayor is a full-time job. And so therefore, how are you going to do both that full-time job of being mayor and, let me tell you, more than a full-time job being a state member of parliament?
Thanks, Mel. This one's made for me. So, yes, it is a full-time job. You know why it's a full-time job? Because I'm the first mayor that's chosen that. I actually left my business and I gave myself to you to serve you as a community. I didn't have to do that. No other mayor has been a full-time mayor. There is a lot of crossover in local government and state. And what I would have to say to you is, how lucky would we be to have a mayor and a state member that actually were aligned and understood the same concerns of the community that I would. I have almost 6 years of experience in this region. I know where the holes are, I know where the gaps are, and I know where the money needs to be spent. That's a decision, it's democracy, it's a decision for you as the voters. I mean, do not underestimate me and my ability to be the mayor and be a member at the same time. Thank you.
Contrary to popular belief that politicians are rotten, I can tell you that a lot of them are actually very, very hardworking. And it's the reason why many of them put their hand up for public service. I have absolutely no idea how somebody could take on both roles. I'm sure it's possible, but I just have no idea. If somebody is working hard to represent their main responsibilities, I think that would be really a tough gig.
I want to ask each of the four of you to reaffirm a pledge if you are elected to represent us and not your own personal stances or opinions or beliefs, which is happening far too much, far too many times.
I'm not running as a candidate for the National Party because I have any political aspirations. I never did that as mayor. I wanted to make a difference. It is one of the hardest jobs being in public office that there is. And there's two people here that understand that. That's myself and Leslie Williams, because we're both doing it at this moment. Do I have personal beliefs? Yes, I do. Do I listen to my community? Absolutely, I do. At the end of the day, if I'm elected, the National Party has policies. They're already in play. So I'm not going in to change the legislation, nor would I be able to as a single member of parliament. So if it comes down to climate change, do I agree with it? No, I don't. We've just been through that, and I wish I could say more on it, but I don't have enough time. Am I here to serve the interests of the electorate of Port Macquarie? Yes, I would be, and you will guide me through your voices on how you want that done.
Thank you, and thanks for the question. Yeah, I suppose I'm lucky with my answer to this question because my personal opinions and the policies of the Greens align. I'm in a much better position, I suppose, than Peta is there. You know, climate change is real. People want change on climate change. The focus on climate change from the Greens is positive and it's the best. And I feel extremely comfortable within myself on acting on all the policies of the Greens, and particularly policies that other parties find difficult to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. And thank you for the question, Sue. I think that, yes, being a part of a party means that there are policies there that really you need to be comfortable with to be a part of that party. But what you're asking is, will I bring my own personal views in it? What I will bring into it is my community's views. That is what's so critically important. Now, sometimes your community views don't necessarily align with your party views, and that's where you really need to do some work. You need to negotiate, you need to talk to the right people, and I've been successful in being able to do that and let's say move some legislation that I didn't need, and a number of us in our party didn't believe, even though it was coming from our own party, didn't believe it should have gone to the parliament itself. But we didn't do it by jumping on the table and stamping our feet. We did it by negotiation and by expressing the views of our own community in a very professional and a civilised way, mostly, I have to say, behind doors to get the work done.
My answer is a bit both ways, and the reason it is this. When I spoke earlier about the crisis that we're facing in those key areas of health, education, housing, etc., my personal view is that they have to be fixed. I firmly believe that Labor has policies that will give it a very good kickstart to put it on the right direction. In terms of my own personal views about one or two little trivial things, no. However, if I have a good idea or somebody convinces me of a good idea, it's my job, if I was your representative, to listen, to take it to the party, to thrash it out, to discuss it, negotiate, to see if it's worthwhile to bring that idea back to the region that I represent.
Hi, I just have one question. Labour in the introduction mentioned the Great Koala National Park, which is a wonderful thing. However, it seems to me that the Great Koala National Park is the only place we're ever going to be able to see koalas in the future, because it seems to me that that means it's a free-for-all for the rest of the forest. We can't see them on a dinner in our local area. I just like to hear your opinions on our local area, and we can't see them.
Thank you very much. And I'm a little bit like you. I'm not convinced that the Great Koala National Park is the answer. I think we definitely have to get the balance right. But when it comes to our local area, my view is that you need to really be talking to the people who know about our local koala population, because as you probably know, koala populations are very unique to local areas. We have some incredible expertise in our community at the Koala Hospital or Koala. Well, thank you for that. It's an amazing organisation, Koala Conservation Australia. And as you well know, we are supporting them to develop the first wild koala breeding centre. And that's specifically absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. And that is why, in particular, I will be continuing to work with the Koala Hospital about what are the best. And as you well know, we want to talk about trees. It was I who lobbied and made sure we got that 197 hectares adjacent to the national parks, because it was so critical habitat, as you probably again well know, not just for our koalas, but many other endangered species within that space.
Koalas, how emotive are they? It's because they're so gorgeous and we align with them as Australians, and I'm a proud Australian. At the end of the day, I need people to understand though, not all gum trees are koala trees, and koalas are urban dwellers as well. We have a large population in the region, especially Port Macquarie, and this is where we have a lot of demise of koalas because they do live in our urban areas and they are prone to cross roads and you know they get ill with chlamydia and dog attacks and the like. But can we just focus also that we are a very heavily vegetated region? We abound with national parks, nature reserves and state forests. So koalas do exist in these areas. Thank goodness for the Koala Conservation Centre, the hospital who actually takes the koalas in when they meet these unfortunate fates, and bushfires as well. You know, these occur and it's not just koalas they affect, it's all mammals and all types of wildlife as well. I've seen koalas in the Great Otway Park down in Victoria and they hang off trees like grapes. I've never seen so many koalas in my life. Take yourself down there. Koalas do exist, but we do need to also be aware that if we don't put focus on keeping them from extinction, they'll only be seen in zoos.
Yeah, thanks very much. We fully support the Great Koala National Park. I think it should be extended right through to the regions of the mid-north coast. Koalas are endangered. They're facing extinction by 2050 unless we increase their habitat. They are, in fact, the canaries in the coal mine as far as biodiversity is concerned. In Australia, we've got one of the worst biodiversity records in the world. The Greens would support the stopping of forestry, of logging in native logging in public forestry. It's uneconomic. We've got better advantages in keeping the trees, in carbon abatement, in creating habitat, and there's a lot of public clearing of native vegetation on private land should even be looked at. We've got really, really strong policies on the environment which will protect koalas and biodiversity going forward. Thank you.
Personally, I'd like to see quite a number of great koala parks right across Australia, not only for the preservation of koalas, which incidentally are almost being pushed to the point of extinction. Currently in Port Macquarie, there's only 250 that we know of. So I'd like to see more great koala national parks right across Australia. Not only do they protect our iconic koalas that are known worldwide, they protect our old growth forests, they protect native forests, they look after and protect native fauna and fauna, it provides jobs and tourism, and it keeps our image as a country that is known internationally by the symbols of a koala and kangaroo out there on the international stage. So I'd like to see more koala parks.
Okay, our next question. Yes?
Thanks very much. Sean Gleeson, lawyer. I'd just like to ask the question. It's all great to be talking about this stuff that is, I mean, that's awesome. But what are you going to actually do for the region? Like, we've got a very diverse region with tourism opportunities, and I'd just like to ask, what are the main issues that you see that need to be addressed in this Port Macquarie region?
Yeah, thanks. Main issue, I think, is the cost of living. What we can do for tourism, what we can do. Sorry, go.
Can I just ask, do we have like 3 or 4 main issues that you see that are the biggest issues that need to be addressed in the Port Macquarie Port Macquarie electorate?
Number 1, the health. Number 2, the cost of living. Number 3, the environment. Number 4, education. That's just off the top of my head, but there's so many issues we can deal with, And overriding all these issues is action on our future. We've got We've got to have this environment left for our future generations. And if we keep going the way we're going, business as usual is just not on the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Look, we're about to see an economic downturn in our region, and the cost of living, the cost of fuel, the cost of housing, groceries, health, you name it, is rising. We need a government that is going to be stable and secure for the future, is going to recognise that we have skills shortage as well. So we need to prop out our businesses. Our business are the wheels, the economic drivers of this region. Our farmers are the ones that put food on our plate. Our healthcare providers are the ones that look after us when we get sick. Our teachers are the ones that teach our children and grow them in an educational perspective. I received very quickly a letter today, and I was kind of, and I might say this for housing, because we're in a housing crisis here in Port Macquarie, Hastings Council, and we're in a housing crisis actually right throughout Australia, but we're in a housing crisis here. I think the number one thing is that people need to have safety and security of a home. How do we go around doing that? We need to ensure there is more public housing available. That would be one of my number one things to focus on.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your question, Sean. 4 very quick areas. Probably some of them are quite a crossover with Stuart, but I have to say we know that one of the key issues for a majority of the community is cost of living pressures, and that's going to continue because we've got rising interest rates, changing in our economy. So cost of living, but our New South Wales government already offers some 70 cost-saving measures for people right across the spectrum, whether, again, you've got young children at school or you're an elderly person, you use the regional seniors travel card, which is $250. So that's the first one. I also agree that health is an absolutely one that we continue to focus on, and that is why I brought the Premier to look at our hospital, because that is where we really need to put more investment in as our community grows. It's a fantastic hospital, incredible staff, but we are a growing community and we need to absolutely expand it and increase our services. And I think local infrastructure. Obviously I talked in my introduction about a number of local projects that we worked with the local government, supported them with funding to deliver, and we need to be able to keep doing that.
My 3 main concerns would be health, and I've spoken about that a little bit earlier. The second one would be housing and homelessness. It may surprise some of you to know that I have heard, and I do not know if this is correct, but I would not be surprised if it's true, that in the greater Port Macquarie Mid-North Coast region, there could be up to 20,000 people who are homeless. Okay, that may be too much, but it's many, many thousands, and it's far too much. They're not people who we would consider to be your traditional homeless, people who cannot hold their lives together. They're working parents, often with 2 incomes, living in tents, caravans, friend's house, etc. It's a very urgent issue. The other third one for me would be how we manage local growth and development. Port Macquarie and our southern regions are exploding. I'd like to see that it's managed so that we have green corridors, so we have the correct infrastructure, that we can keep our area with the unique beauty and lifestyle that we all know and that we all treasure, and one of the reasons why we're here. So correct, careful, sustainable, local management of our growth and development.
Next question. Any questions up here?
Good evening, Peta Nash. I wear a few hats around town. One question for four of you. What assurance can you give the community that when you go down to Macquarie Street, you'll be fighting for the mental health and get more mental health practitioners in the area, especially for our emergency service workers, both paid and volunteer? Programs more proactive than reactive. At the moment, very hard to get mental health assistance. So what assurance can you give us that you'll be fighting for something?
Well, thank you for the question, and I acknowledge the many hats and the roles that you play, both emergency services and across the community. But mental health is a significant issue, not just in our community, right across regional communities. Again, we see the inequities between the access to mental health services from people living in the regions to those living in the city. It is one of many, many issues that I'll continue to talk about while I'm down in Parliament House in Macquarie Street. But it's not just about, making sure you address it in Macquarie Street. It's actually working with the many local services that we already have here and getting a better understanding of how we can support them to expand their services. That's what it's about. Because sometimes, surprise to some of you, not all the answers are actually in Macquarie Street. They're right here in our own backyard. And we need to be talking to each other, continue to network to make sure that we find local solutions that will work for our local community and our local people.
This is one of the health areas that Labor wants to invest in. We're very aware of it and want to do it. I would reiterate what Leslie said. It's something that has to be done in consultation with local people as much as the professionals, wherever they may be. But it is of great concern. It is on our radar and something that we seriously want to address.
The Greens health policy, thanks Peter for the question. The Greens health policy is really focused on free access to mental health, psychological services, and particularly dental health as well. So we've got a really detailed policy that's been driven by medical practitioners within the Greens that says we are severely lacking in access to mental health services. Anyone that works at the hospital will back me up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mental health that's a very broad brush statement. What is mental health? Is it someone who's had breakdown because they're not coping with a certain situation in their life? Is it post-traumatic stress after an incident? Is it veterans returning from war? What is mental health? What I do know about mental health is that we're all, as humans, extremely fragile. I did attend with the Regional Health Minister, Bronwyn Taylor. I did attend some time there at the hospital. There has been an expansion in the mental health ward at the hospital, the wing, and there are more mental health workers actually that have just recently been engaged there. I have to agree though, mental health is a whole of community response. We're seeing it with our ambulance drivers who are spending, our paramedics are spending the majority of their time actually, if they're not attending domestic violence issues, they're attending mental health issues. Our police are stretched to the limit because of mental health. We need to stop the silos of dealing with mental health and deal with it on a broader range. And it goes for all age groups because we're seeing our young people actually experiencing mental health. So I have a lot more I could say on that, but a minute's not long enough to talk about such a very serious issue.
Next question.
Transparency about conflicts of interest about politicians is really important. Transparency about conflicts of interest about politicians is very important to the community, especially knowing out to candidates' direct interests, investment properties and corporations. Stuart and Kate, during the campaign, will you give consideration to letting our community know about your property and corporation interests? And for Leslie and Peta, where can community members go to find your public official disclosures of interest in property, corporations or other interests?
Thanks, Rachel. And the short answer is yes. Yes, the Greens really don't take any money from corporate donors, and they're very, very strict on the probity and the private interest of candidate. So I've already been through the mill with the Greens to get up here and stand in front of you today. And I'll be happy to make public any of the interests that I work in. Let's tap off the ramp with this one. Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks, Stuart, and thank you for the question, Rachel, Deputy Mayor. We are required as members of Parliament to make a ordinary return every year, where we are required to list all of our investment properties, any interests we have in companies, any shares we hold, and any of the interests that our siblings, our children hold if they are under the age of 18. We also then have to do a supplementary ordinary return every 6 months. So if things change, you need to make sure that you include it in your supplementary ordinary return and deliver it to the clerk each 6 months or each 12 months. So it's all on the public record. It's a requirement of all members of Parliament. Oh, I'm happy to send you the link. It's on the public record. Because let me tell you, the journalists wait for them for the due date.
Well, I'm not a member of Parliament, but I'm the Mayor of Port Macquarie Hastings Council, and Rachel, you know full well what we have to do as far as our disclosures are concerned. I make my disclosures, all the things that my husband and I have worked really hard for, become public when you're in the public eye. So perhaps if you're interested and you have a look at our disclosures, you might see just how hard Craig and I have worked for what we've got. Thank you.
I like this question. I'm going to answer it in two parts. I love transparency in all levels of government. I wish we had more. I do not like the opportunity that one person or another person in government or council may grab an issue to politicise it. I wish that we had total transparency in all levels of government. Personally, I'm more than happy to be transparent with you. I own a one-bedroom unit in Noosa, which my son lives in. Previous to that, he was homeless. He was living in a tent, newly married, a child arriving. So in he goes. I have no shares. I've never sat on a board of a corporation. Modest savings. That's about it.
Next question. First of all, I'd like to show respect for people up the front there. It's a big job on the and a couple of things. One of which is climate change. We can talk about health. We can talk about all sorts of different things, which are very, very important. However, on Australia Day, in this area, there was nothing. It seems to me that Australians as a whole, in general, have lost a lot of their pride in being Australians. When I first come here in 1969, it was huge. And it was always huge. We might be able to amazed how big it was. In Melbourne, there was flying past, there was marching in the streets, and up here, nothing. Are we losing pride? If we are, what do you guys think to do about it?
Thank you. So as Mayor, I am the one who is certified to make Australian citizens, and it's one of the proudest parts of my job that I have. We had a celebration of Australia Day in Port Macquarie. We've centralised it now. We used to come to Laurieton, over to Warhope and Port Macquarie, but it's been centralised, and that was since COVID. As Mayor, I can tell you, and I will only be your Mayor until September next year, I will not be recontesting the local government elections regardless of what happens in this election, and I can tell you that for next Australia Day, I will not support the removal of Australia Day. I've been approached by many people suggesting that we need to move that day and celebrate it on another day. Australia Day for me is a celebration of our sovereignty, of being Australian, but also for all those migrants that have come here to our country and built on what we have today. It's not a day for division, it's a day for celebration, and I'm 100% committed to Australia Day as long as I have breath in my Australian lungs.
Yeah, thanks, Peta. Well, ultimately, with the exception of Indigenous persons in the room, we're all immigrants long term. So it's a pretty divisive issue in the Greens. It's ones that we're struggling with. Australia Day, Invasion Day. It depends on what you think about it. Personally, I think we should change the focus of the day, be more inclusive, and I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
You can't be more exclusive than being Australian, surely. Isn't that being inclusive?
Inclusive. I'm saying inclusive. Yeah. Inclusive was the word I said. Yeah. Thank you.
Unfortunately, this is another one of those very important issues that has been subject to vast, deep, passionate political debate. Personally, I'd like to see Australia Day deepened, celebrated more, certainly talk with everybody, come to a consultation, come to a place where everybody can be truly united and can truly reflect what we are as a multicultural nation, and that we can make it one of the best days that Australia could have throughout the year.
Thanks, Pete. Well, I spent Australia Day not in Port Macquarie, but at the southern end of my electorate in Harrington. And let me tell you, the hall down there was packed, and we had an absolutely fabulous morning. We had sausages on the barbecue when we got there, and scones and jam and cream, and there was lots of flag waving. It was an absolutely fabulous day. I have certainly heard the views of people in the community that they're concerned that we're not seeing the celebrations at each of the different areas across our community. That's a matter for council. But I think that what would potentially be worth doing is really having some local consultation about what people would like to see on Australia Day. Because as I said, I have heard concerns that it has become quite fragmented. But we're right, it is a day that we should be celebrating, but also a day I think we should be acknowledging our history.
Laurieton from Dunlop. I would like to ask all of you, what's your attitude to building houses on floodplains?
Well, that's a very good question, considering what the people of Dunbogan have had to go through over during the floods in 2019, 2020. Unfortunately, we have had planning laws that have allowed development in flood areas, and that we are now paying the price for. Mainly because part of the reason is we're seeing changes in the way our climate works, and the impacts that climate change is having on our local communities. So yes, we should absolutely be thinking a lot more. And I know there are lots of flood studies that have been done, and council has mapped out where the flood areas are, and obviously there are restrictions now about where you can actually build. But my heart goes out to those people who've been impacted, who would have built homes, many probably 10, 20, 30 years ago, that weren't having to meet requirements in terms of being in flood areas.
Nothing was more heartbreaking than the floods that came into our region. I spent a week with my elbows and my knees in mud, pulling out people's prized possessions that were absolutely ruined, seeing mattresses, bedding, photos, clothing, everything going to landfill. Should houses in the future be built on floodplain? No. Should houses in flood-prone areas receive government assistance for house raising, which is available? Yes, most definitely. We do need to recognise, though, we as Australians, we love to live near water. We try to get as close to it as possible. We're just drawn to it. But I think with all the flood mapping that we're doing at council as well, it is a double-edged sword, because what happens is if you are identified in a floodplain area, it affects your insurance too. So should new development be anywhere near floodplain or recognised floodplain areas? Definitely not.
Yeah, thanks, Peta. I also worked after the floods in the North Shore and Port Macquarie, working on about 50 or 60 houses, doing rewiring and looking at the heartbreaking damage that was done to these buildings. And the facts that the people that I know there cannot get insurance now. They can't afford insurance on the North Shore unless you can lift some of these houses. They're looking at $6,000 and $7,000 a year just to get flood insurance. It's if you believe in the science, if you follow the science, you look at human-induced climate change and rising sea levels, they are the actual maps that are used by council to change the 1 in 100 year flood planning. So again, human-induced climate change overrides everything we're doing. Should we be building houses in floodplains? No. 100 years ago, they were fine. 100 years to come, what is going to happen? Look at the science, follow the science, and work for the community. Thank you.
Obviously, I don't think that building on a floodplain is a good idea. But this question that you have asked raises what I was saying before. I think a good local manager should ensure that our growth, our development in the southern part of Port Macquarie, our regions down here and to the west of Port Macquarie, is managed in a way that is sensible, based on the science, based on what we know about our local climate, ecology, and to make sure that it's sustainable in the long run so people are not penalised. And as I said before, taking into account making sure that we've got a good sprinkling of green corridors so that we can guarantee a good, healthy quality of life without these sort of stresses and concerns.
Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time there, so thank you for your questions today. I'm just going to invite the candidates to give their closing remarks now, so we'll each have 2 minutes just hearing from each of the candidates just to wrap things up. We'll just go in the opposite direction if we started, so let's start with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for coming out this evening. What I've really heard tonight is actually the sort of questions that I get asked every single day as your local member. People come to me with questions. They might be actually personal issues. They might be local issues that they have concerns about, or there may be issues that are far more broader than that, that actually impact people right across Australia. And trying to work really hard with my team to find the solutions is actually what I really love about the job. We don't always get the right answers for people, but we do our darndest to see what we can to help them, whatever way we possibly can. What we will do always is make sure that we listen. We listen and we work to try and find a solution for each and every one of you as constituents in the Port Macquarie electorate. So again, I reiterate that what I'm offering to you as a candidate in this state election is somebody who has that 12 years experience, the experience working with government, with working with a team, but also, as I said before, working with members of parliament across all political persuasions. Because it may be that we're not in government, but I am very confident that even if we aren't, I will be able to continue to advocate for my community and get results as I have done over the past 12 years. Getting close to $1.4 billion invested in this community, which I'm incredibly proud of. But more importantly, I'm really pleased that our community is seeing the benefit of the Liberals and Nationals government and a member that is absolutely dedicated to ensure that that continues into the future.
As I mentioned at the beginning in my introduction, I believe that we're facing some great challenges in our state. Big issues like the economy, privatisation not working, rorts, lack of transparency in the state government, housing, health, manufacturing, climate change. These are big issues. And I believe, and why I stand here and why I said earlier I'm proud to stand here as your Labor candidate for the coming election, because I believe that our party has policies, some of which I've touched on very briefly, but we have good policies that can be found on the internet to address these issues. It would be my great responsibility and hard work to ensure out here locally, not just in other areas across the state, but that Port Macquarie and our southern regions have our share of the benefits that I believe a Labor government can bring to our great state.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone again for coming along tonight, particularly the other candidates. It's a hard gig. I hope you felt some of my passion tonight, my passion for the community and my passion for the Greens policies. The Greens policies you find for 10 years or 15 years have been leading. Some of the policies we see now from the Liberal, Labor and the National Party coming through are our old policies. It used to be illegal to talk about climate change, human-induced climate change. Now it's right at the top of the agenda for all these parties. So I hope you can see that a vote for the Greens is powerful. A vote for the Greens is a message to Macquarie Street that we really need to act honestly on the targets that they've placed. I mean, the Liberal National Party has got a great target in New South Wales. It's the most leading target in Australia, which is 100% renewable by zero carbon by 2050. I fully support this. I think it's aspirational, but we can't get there if we continue to open coal mines. So the aspiration is great, and it's only with the Greens that you get the facts and the truth, follow the science, and act on climate change. Thank you for listening to me tonight, and I'll hand it on to Peta. Thank you.
In closing, I will finish as I started, that all politics is local. So at a local level, it is for you to decide going into this election who you think will best serve you as your local member. Forget about the jersey anyone wears. Forget about your own biases towards politics. Think when you go into the ballot, who is going to represent you? Is it going to be the current member? Is it going to be Labor? Is it going to be the Greens? Is it going to be myself as a National Party candidate? Only you can decide that. But rest assured, if the decision is for me as the National Party candidate, I will continue to deliver on what has been delivered here. And I've heard the current member, who is Liberal, talk about the money that has been delivered in this region. I would have to say that for 10 years of the 12, it was National Party money that flowed into this region. Only the National Party. I didn't interrupt anyone at all. I didn't. I can handle it. I can handle it. It is the National Party, in my closing statement, it is the National Party that represents the regions. It represents the regions and the people of regions like ours, and that's why I joined the party, to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Leslie, Keith, Stuart, and Peter. And so I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. And if we could just give the candidates a round of applause for today. Thank you very much. You will conclude the evening there. Thank you.
And we'll share, sir.
Oh, thank you.
I moved to Port Macquarie a few years ago. So
Oh, yes, yeah.
it'd be good to keep in touch up there.
Definitely. No, that's not us. How's it going there? Good.
Oh, well, I'm not in the hospital. Yeah, we made our move right when the borders closed. So I didn't get a chance to introduce myself to local establishment. But it's good in a way. In fact, it pleases my heart very well, because I'm going to places where I'm needed.
Yes.
Particularly Kempsey and Grafton. And Port Macquarie doesn't need a senior specialist like me. I'll be getting in the way of career aspirations of the younger fellows.
That's really good. No, we'll catch up sometime. Nice job. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah,